Sometimes things don't come out how we expect them. You know, this happens to me often, and I almost gave up on this project as I felt it looked awful after adding the paint. It started with not knowing which direction I was going. I truly didn't know, and sometimes that happens more often than you think. I knew I wanted to work in my Dina Wakley media book because I wanted a larger surface to work with. I thought I wanted to use the burlap or canvas pages as a background, but then I just started ripping them apart into strips. I ripped half of it off first, thinking I will use it like a flap for my page. But then I started ripping those pieces, tearing them into small strips, and it felt so liberating, as if I was tearing all my doubts away. This helped open the floods of creativity, and they poured in like a stampede. That's why I always say you should concentrate sometimes on the mundane things like gluing, tearing, or brushing. It really helps release that creativity. Since it was canvas, the threads were coming off the sides, so I started loosening them and fraying them. I actually used lots of them from around the book while pulling the threads that were sticking out from other pages. I figured I can use this as texture. I started gluing the threads in one side of the page as I thought I was only going to use one side, and have the canvas flaps flip over them. I glued them from top to bottom, longer ones in the middle to create movement. Then I ripped and glued some canvas strips as well to create a thicker texture. I used soft matte gel medium to glue them and let them dry for a few hours. The texture was incredible. Fabric gives such good texture to projects, and especially in this one where I could recycle what was already in the journal was perfect because I could use the strings and the canvas to create that texture. Once it was dried, I started painting. I wanted to use fluid acrylics because they're more translucent and liquid and I could water them down. The effect was awesome around the texture, but it didn't flow like I wanted 100%. Maybe it's because I forgot to add gesso. That could be the case. But I persevered. The first thing I did is spray water all over the background. And then I took the True Yellow liquid acrylic and a soft paintbrush and added it to the top of the background. Then, using water, I let it dilute to the bottom. Then I took the red color, which is carmine red, and did the exact same thing. I added it to the edge of the top of my layout and then let it drip down the page. By adding water in between, it helped dilute the paint and make it drip down the page. I also added a little bit of brown liquid acrylic to darken the strands in between. And these colors blended beautifully together. I really loved it with the warm colors, mixing red and yellow together. It looked powerful to me. But when I added the blue, and I've done that several times in the past recently with watercolors, it didn't really look right. I followed the same steps as the other colors by adding some water, letting it drip down the page, and just mixing it in between the colors. I had done this so many times before that I thought it would work with these colors as well. But I found that the colors didn't blend well together. Maybe because watercolors blend easier and acrylic paints actually dry, and I should have considered that. But I know that making mistakes sometimes is part of the process, and I know that I did this. So I dried the blue, and then I thought maybe I should add a little bit of gold. So I took some gold paint. This is just regular heavy body acrylic paint, and I added a little bit of water to just dilute it and just started painting with it to just add a little bit more brightness to the background. I really felt that this brought a lot more light and highlights to the texture, but it still didn't look quite right. I mixed the colors, dried them, and mixed them again and again, adding colors in certain areas to counteract others. But it was just becoming more of a mess, darker and darker, and I didn't know what direction to go. I thought to add some white and lighten things up, and thought, let me try white matte wax from Finnabair. but it didn't look right again once I added it. It added it lightened it up and added some highlights, but it wasn't the right look that I was going for. At this point, I was ready to give up. After all, it was just a page I could flip and start a new one. But I'm not a quitter and I don't like giving up. So I started thinking, what else could I do? Then it clicked. I can add some colors, but in spray form, and maybe add a little gold, as gold always makes everything great. It makes it shine. So I took my Seth Apter Ice Ink dye sprays and started spraying the background to cover up some of the darkness. I started, of course, with the gold to lighten up the dark areas, and it worked. I was happier. Then I used the burgundy color and also the teal, and I was spraying them not only on the background but also on the canvas. These three colors were already on my background, so just adding the same ones on both sides of the page was great. While I was spraying the strips of canvas, the shadows or negative space would spray itself on the other side, and it created a really cool texture that I couldn't deny having on the other side. That's where it gave me the idea that maybe I should use both sides of the page, and the canvas flaps can go from one side to the other. Then I decided that I'm going to add some splatters with the same exact colors. Splatters always make everything look so good. I used all three colors to create splatters as I thought it would match perfectly to the background. And it really ties it all in, and it looked really, really good. I originally wanted to add this Joggles chipboard woman because I loved how she was almost leaping and flying. That's when it occurred to me that I could spray her on the other side of the page and her silhouette would appear in both sides, as if the women were flying onto each other, leaping up into the air. It was like a mirror image on the other side. I sprayed the woman over the left side of the page, so it would serve as a dual purpose. Not only would the woman be in gold, but it would also help create that silhouette. Then I realized that when I'm flipping her around, I need to spray it again. But this time I sprayed her in blue and gold to give her more contrast against the busy background. Both her and the silhouette came out amazing. I outlined the woman on the left with a black Stabilo pencil and then added some darker edges to the chipboard on the right hand side. So that way you could really see the shadows underneath. I wanted to get some darkness around the edges. I always love framing my edges with a darker color, and I tried black, but it didn't look quite right. So I wanted a color that would maybe match a little bit more. And I found Distress Ink Rusty Hinge, and I basically went around the edges of my page just to add that same kind of burgundy effect to the background, and that really helped frame it all. And I used my dauber to just blend it all around. Then I glued the woman onto the background. I used 3D matte gel to put some glue on the back of the chipboard. That's the thing I had on hand because anything will work to glue this. You can even use regular glue, and I just pressed it onto the background just to make sure it holds straight. I also took my scissors and started ripping the canvas pieces a little bit more. I wanted them to be a little bit thinner. I don't know what made me do this. You don't need to do this part, or if you don't want to do the canvas at all, you can just rip it away from the page altogether. But I just really love this part because I like them to look a little bit thinner. And I just went and did the same thing that I had done at the beginning. Because when they're thinner, they curl a little bit more and they looked really cool. I found a sentiment from the Art by Marlene set that was perfect for this. It says, "Listen to your inner voice. It knows the truth." And I thought it was perfect for this page. And I just took the same gel and just sealed the words and then outlined them with my Stabilo pencil. I love using the Stabilo pencil because it really writes on everything. So that's why I used it before to outline the woman. And now I decided to add a little bit more doodling. So I'm adding pretend sewing, almost like stitches on the edges. And then some more doodling, some lines to give it some more movement. I love adding movement to the page, and lines going across horizontally and also vertically really help with this. So my page has a lot of movement to begin with, but it really helps to add those extra doodles to really give some movement. So it gives the movement of going up and down and sideways. And lines do this perfectly. I even added some lines under the woman's feet to make it look as if she's leaping into the air. The lines give that movement of flying, and it really helps bring in all the elements together. Towards the end, I took the strands of canvas and stapled them to the page so they could open up a little bit and wouldn't be as bunched up. And that really kind of opened up the page and made it look really, really cool. I couldn't staple all of them because obviously I couldn't reach the middle of the page, but I stapled the ones on the outside. And then for the middle, what I did is I took some of the gel and just glued the tips and opened up everything. So it looked like the movement is going across the page from one side to the other. Finally, as you can see here, I added a little bit of journaling around the edges of the journal to just express my emotions. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really appreciate you being my members, and I'm so grateful for all of you. Thank you so much and have an amazing day. Bye, everyone.